My name is Annalise Christine. Welcome to my channel if you are new. Welcome back if you've seen one of my videos before. Today we're going to be doing episode 2 of my weekly reads. I want to kind of show you more in real time how I'm feeling after these books, but I decided to do this series after I'd finished some books, so we're going to get caught up, and then hopefully as the series progresses I can show you more in real time versus just going back at the end and sharing. Hopefully that makes sense. But we're going to go through the 6 books I finished from January 7th through January 12th. So it slowed down slightly from the previous episode just because I went back to work, but we still had a lot of snow days, so lots of reading still happened. The first book I finished on January 7th was The Mystery Guest by Nita Prose. It is a cozy mystery and the second book in the Molly the Maid series. So when a guest author comes to give a big announcement and ends up dead, Molly is very involved in the case because she knows a lot about the hotel and she ended up being in the room with the author, and so the police are very curious about Molly and very skeptical of her. We're also thrown back into Molly's past as her and her grandma are cleaning a mansion and the people that she meets there and how those people are connected to the author that passed away. And it's just a very interesting book. I really enjoyed it. I really connect with Molly and her thought process on things. And I ended up giving that book 4.25 stars. And that was the 9th book I read this year. I will say I usually have an audiobook and an ebook going at the same time. So there are times I finish 2 books in one day, not because I read a whole book in one day, but I finished an audiobook and an ebook, which is what happened on the 7th. I was reading The Mystery Guest as an ebook, and my audiobook was Fangirl Down by Tessa Bailey. And so I finished them both on the 7th. So the Fangirl Down by Tessa Bailey is a contemporary romance, and it is the first book in the Big Shots series. It is about golfer Wells, who was doing great and then just hit a really big golf slump. And his biggest fan, Josephine, is there, and he ends up asking her to be a caddy for him after he rage quits, and she really needs the money, so she agrees to it. Obviously, with it being a romance and close proximity, things go from there. I will say I like this book more than I thought, just because when I realized it was about golf, I didn't think I would enjoy it very much, but it is just a really cute romance, and I ended up giving that book 4 stars. I finished Beyond That, The Sea by Lauren Ash Spence on January 9th, and this is a historical fiction coming of age book. This is one of the 25 books I want to read in 2025 because I did win this in a Goodreads giveaway. But this book, we are following Beatrix as she is living in London, but it's during World War II, so it's not safe. So instead of sending Bea to the country, they end up sending her to America. And so we're following her as she's going to America. We're following her parents as they are still in London. And then we are following the family that she joins, which has 2 parents and 2 boys. And so we're end up following lots of different characters throughout the book. And I will say this is one of these books that's not necessarily a happily ever after type story. There are some very realistic but very hard things that happen throughout the book to characters. Plus it's just a wartime book, and so it's definitely not a feel-good book, but the characters I really enjoyed, and I ended up giving it 4 stars. The next book is Swordcatcher by Cassandra Clare. I finished this on January 11th. This is a young adult fantasy and the first book in the Chronicles of Castelline series. I will say this has nothing to do with the Shadowhunter universe. We're following Kel, who at 10 years old was taken from his orphanage and asked/told to be the Prince Connor's body double, essentially. So in circumstances where Prince Connor's life is at stake, Kel has to step in. There is a magic pendant that he has to wear to make him appear to be Connor. They do look alike, they act alike, they end up becoming best friends once he agrees to be basically Prince Connor's body double. We're jumped, I believe, about 10 years in the future. Kel ends up getting hurt, and we have Lynn, who is a physician, and then women are not normally physicians. She is connected to someone in the castle, and Connor and Lynn do not get along, but she's the only one that can help Kel. And so we're learning about Lynn and her medical abilities, and we're also learning about what's really going on in their kingdom, and Kel ends up uncovering some things. And so there's a lot going on in this book, and it's the first of a series, so I'm really excited to continue the series, and I really enjoyed it, and I ended up giving that book 4.25 stars. Also on January 11th, the audiobook I finished was Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. I chose this book because it is a children's book on the Roy Gilmore book list, and I talked about it in my first episode, but each month there is a prompt, and my goal for myself is to read 2 books off that list each month. And so this was my second book, and it's Charlie and chocolate factory. If you watch the movie, I was so shocked how closely the book and the movie aligned. I haven't watched the movie in a few years, so there could be minor details that are different, but I feel like the movie did such a good job with this book. And we're following Charlie Bucket. He gets a golden ticket. He gets to go into the chocolate factory that's in his town that no one seems to work at and learn how Wonka makes the chocolate. There are other kids that go who aren't necessarily the best behave, and things happen to them as they're in there. And so I thought that was just a really fun book to read. That was also book 13 for 2025. So an audiobook I finished on January 12th was Extras by Scott Westerfeld. It's the fourth and final book in the young adult dystopian series Uglies. The first three books we followed a group of characters, and in this book we meet a new main character, Aya, and she is living in the aftermath of the other three books. The characters in those three books are very well known, they're popular. Aya doesn't know them, and she's just living in her own world. Being a 15-year-old girl, she wants fame and be popular. So I feel like that part was so realistic. Like, Aya's perspective and the reason she does things just make total sense for someone who works with high schoolers. And I always like seeing the world after the chaos of dystopian books, and we get to see the main characters come back towards the end of the book to help. I really like this. I thought it was a fun conclusion to the Uglies series, and I ended up giving that book 3.5 stars. So those were the 6 books I finished from January 7th to January 12th. Let me know if you have read any books for the month of January.